following is a Live the Dream Media production.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Local Marana Live podcast, broadcast, /live stream, /good time. We've got an awesome guest with us today, and I apologize in advance. I just got my voice back last night. It was missing all day yesterday. I decided to work from home, and I am good. I'm medically good. It's just sometimes our voices go away. Maybe I talk too much. That's a sign. I don't know. But anyways, I have Dr. Dan Streeter here with us today, and he is a community leader. He is the superintendent of the Marana Unified School District, and he also has an awesome Substack that you should subscribe to, because I have, and I've been reading up on some of his stuff. But we're going to get into a lot of different things today, but without further ado, I'd like to bring you here on the program, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for the applause.
So I feel like you set me up that I have to do a lot of talking this morning.
Yeah.
So I thought I was the guest. I thought I just answered a couple of questions, but I got you. We're going to talk all things.
You're the man for the job.
Marana, so this is easy for me.
Let's do it. Let's talk Prop 411.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, there's a lot of exciting things happening in Marana Unified School District right now. Prop 411 is one of the big things that you'll see on your ballot. Ballots have hit mailboxes. If you're part of the mail-in ballot crew, you've gotten your 2 pages front and back of candidates and propositions. But Prop 411 is it's an M&O override for Marana. And this is a really important initiative for the school district. And let me put a little, some history behind this, if that's okay. So 2 years ago, we went out to the community with Proposition 491. Prop 491 was a bond. Bonds are for stuff, capital things, right? So the new K-8 out in North Marana is part of that, is one of those bond projects, right? Some of the playground equipment at our elementary schools, bond projects. New buses. Prop 411 is an override. Overrides are for people and programs. So we've been fortunate in the Marana Unified School District. We have been operating on a 10% override since 2008. Wow. This was approved back in 2007, went into effect in 2008. 10% override means our local community approved us to increase our budget by 10%. That's about $10 million in our district. And that currently helps fund full-day kindergarten, counselors, some of our elementary specials, some of our extracurricular opportunities for students, and it provides some salary and wage support for teachers and support staff. Now, you have to get an override approved every few years. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have to phase those funds out, and then you have to start talking about how that's going to impact those programs. So Prop 411 is really a renewal of that 10%. So that's what voters are seeing. Now, there's a caveat this year, and this is an important caveat for our community to understand. When our governing board made the decision to put this on the ballot for renewal, our governing board also made the decision to increase it from 10% to 15%. And that's an important thing for voters to be aware of. It's also important to know that 15% is the maximum you can do. So this isn't a case where 5 years from now the board's going to come back out and say, okay, now we want 20, now we want 25, now we want, right? That's 15% is your maximum amount. But there's really 3 reasons that the board is asking the community for this increase. The first being, when you look at our neighboring communities and neighboring school districts, most of them are operating on an override that's above 10%. I think Amphi is looking at 13%, Flowing Wells 12.5%. So there's a little bit of a competition component to this from just a standpoint of school funding, right? Marana was falling a little bit behind. The second reason is when we look at a competition standpoint, we want to attract the most highly effective employees to the Marana Unified School District. By increasing from 10 to 15%, the board's feeling is we can take that extra 5%. That goes directly to teacher salaries and support staff wages. And that's how we can not just attract, but also retain some of our most highly effective employees. Mm-hmm. The third thing is the tax impact. And so when our governing board looked at how this would impact the tax rate on local folks, when you think about what's happened in Marana in the last few years, we've experienced a tremendous amount of growth. And with growth, what you do is you extend out some of that tax impact, right? So you have more people paying into a fixed amount. So that will actually lower an impact. We also have some existing bond debt that is starting to come off of the books. So when you look at what is the tax rate impact going from 10% to 15%, the tax rate will probably stay the same. It'll probably come down a little bit. Now, I'm saying tax rate. An individual's tax impact, that's still going to be based on your assessed valuation. So if your assessed valuation goes up, your impact could go up. Your rate won't. Your rate will probably go down. But understand, I'm not saying that your tax impact will go down, just your tax rate will. And that'll impact people a little bit differently. Obviously, if your assessed valuation is going up, that's a good thing too. We're not opposed to that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the nitty-gritty with Prop 411.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you're talking about assessed value, you're talking about their home and property value as a whole.
Yep.
And then how that's assessed, and then that's how the tax rate is decided for their home. For instance, for me, I was talking about this with my wife. I'm like, hey, when we moved in here in like 2019, we paid like $2,100 on our taxes. And then this go around, we're paying $3,166. Well, the market has jumped significantly since then. We bought the house for $250,000, I think, back then.
Right.
And now it's worth almost $400,000 without doing anything because the market has changed. So I don't want people that are listening to think, oh, that's because of what's happening with the school district and this proposition. There's so much more into it. Other than this is not the huge effect on it. It's actually the value of your home and what you own.
That's the biggest player, right? You're exactly right. It's that assessed valuation, and certainly we like that in these times our values are going up. We work really hard as a school district to create some consistency with tax rates, right? So when we talk about overrides, it's continuing existing overrides. When we talk about adding that 5%, it's understanding that we believe we can keep that tax rate consistent. When we talk about bonds, 2 years ago, a bond is going to increase a tax on the local community, but we can also coordinate that with existing bond debt coming off the books. We can also refinance some bonds along the way to kind of we really want to keep things consistent for our community. And I think this is an opportunity that our board recognized that, hey, we can do some good things. We can keep doing great things for kids.
Right.
We can do great things for our employees, and we can really create some consistency within our community at the same time.
Right. When you talk about employee retention, I know that that's a situation in a lot of places right now. And are you guys feeling the effects of that too at the district?
Yeah.
And this will help.
So employee retention is, and let's just say it's not just education, right? It's all fields, but let's talk education. That's what I'm here to talk about. This is a national conversation. This is happening across the country. When we talk about teacher shortages, Arizona is a part of this, and Pima County is a part of this, and Marana is not immune to it.
Right.
We're dealing with the same things. When I talk to local businesses, and we're fortunate, right? Marana is a very supportive community, very supportive education, very supportive of our children, and really sees the symbiotic relationship that exists between a school district and a town, right? As one goes, the other goes, right? So we're fortunate in that. So a lot of it is folks will say, well, how can we support you? What do you need from us? I don't need anything other than I need you to continue to be supportive. I need us to continue to be positive about how education impacts this community in a really substantial positive way. When we have these voter initiatives, understanding that we're looking at all the different facets of an initiative, not to put an extra strain on our community, but how can we continue to enhance our schools, enhance outcomes for kids that in turn create a more vibrant community. And hopefully, from a homeowner's perspective, continue to increase the value of your home.
Right, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Teaching is, I see that as one of those careers that you got to have it in your heart. It's not you just wake up and go, oh, I think I'm just going to go teach, right? I think it's something like, public safety and stuff like that, where you kind of just have to see it as a calling. I feel like it's just one of those things because it demands a lot. To give you some perspective about me, I was a school resource officer at the high school for some time, and it gave me a whole new perspective on teachers.
Right.
Because there was a few days, and I only had a few days, mind you, Dr. Streeter here. I only had a few days where I was teaching the whole day. And that was some of the most exhausting days that I experienced. I went home so drained and tired. And it really changed my whole outlook on everything, on what the teachers are going through and what they're dealing with in these classrooms. And these classroom sizes, they vary, but they're above 20 for sure. So
absolutely.
So you got a lot of different minds and opinions and things you're trying to work in. And granted, I wasn't over here teaching like it was safety oriented.
But you got it, right?
Yeah, but I got it. But it was, I want to share this with you and the listeners too. Is like, understand that this isn't easy, right? And we do need to support them. We need to be involved. There was a conversation taking place in the studio before here where we were talking about, PTOs and the involvement of parents at the school district and everything. And, I saw this too. The only time you would see a big gathering of folks from the community was when like either a school was shutting down or there was something real big to address. But just like everything, there's a compounding effect, right? Like we should be a lot more involved in dealing with the little things that are at hand, right? Because they're important right then and now, and it'll compound over time, and we end up with, some system issues and stuff we'll get into later on. But, this is my call to action for folks listening and watching is get more involved with the district and go to these meetings, go to these school board meetings and know what's going on and provide insight and support. I mean, how hard is that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's a focus point of ours. Mm-hmm. We talk about the importance of our students and student achievement. We talk about the importance of our staff and giving them the support, giving them the voice, giving them the opportunities that they need. But equal to that, we talk about our parents and our community and creating opportunities for both our parents and our community to view themselves as partners in the educational process. And if we get really good at that partnership and we can create support that works both ways, then we have advocates working both ways, right? Mm-hmm. We can have this community really advocating for our schools and our schools really advocating for our community. You hit it right on the head. Get involved with your schools, PTOs. We do a quarterly MUSD parent partnership, the community conversation with the superintendent, right? It's an open forum. I meet with parents. We just did this a few weeks back, had a great turnout at Twin Peaks K-8. Mm-hmm. These are great opportunities for me to provide updates, what's happening in the district to parents. And then we always end with a Q&A from parents. And what's great about that Q&A is everybody comes with a different question, right? So I have been asked, why are we serving breakfast for lunch? And I have been asked, what is the long-term sustainable funding plan for education in the state of Arizona? And everything in between, right? But it's great. That's a great forum to do that in a very informal way. So I would echo what you said. I encourage people to find ways to get involved. We have that. We want that. We have these partnerships, and we want you to be a part of that as well. The other thing, I can't leave this topic without saying, you talked about a calling. I think that's spot on. This is not teaching is not a job. It's a vocation. Mm-hmm. It is a calling. And I don't think there's anything that's more cognitively intense, and you pretty much laid this out for me. I don't have to dwell on this too much. There's not really a job that is as cognitively intense as teaching. From bell to bell, teachers are on, right? They're on. They're dealing with high 20s to 30s class sizes, differing needs, addressing student needs, addressing student learning. There's not a bathroom break. There's seldom a lunch break, right? It's those folks are on, and unlike a lot of other professions where it can be intense, right? It can be cognitively intense, it can be physically intense, but from a period of time from bell to bell, there's really not a group like teachers that just have to be on, and that's you got to be a special person to be able to take that on.
I remember talking to some of the administrators after my first couple of times doing that, that first year I was there. And I was like, I don't know how you guys do this all day. Yeah. And they say stuff like, well, I don't know how you're a cop, right. But I'm like, I'm not going call to call per se, right? There's some downtime in between, just typing some stuff.
And even my role, right? Yeah. I have some control over my schedule. Things pop up, but I have some control. A teacher really does not have control over their schedule. They're just on.
Yeah. So those summer breaks, I I appreciate it for those folks.
Yeah,
I
and
really do.
I'll be honest, I don't know that we're giving people a break anymore. Right?
No, just add more.
We pretty
training.
much we hit our summer institute starts the week after school gets out. That runs for a couple of weeks. We have summer trainings throughout the summer, and then we start to bring people back to introduce the new school year. There's a little bit of maybe a misperception on what summer break actually means.
Well, all I can say to that is that more reason to support what's going on. I like that you are doing those presentations where the folks can ask you questions and meet with you and stuff like that. Because in reality, what other avenue do they got?
Right. It's a challenge, right? And I think what we want to make sure that, especially in Marana, that there's always a direct line of communication between a parent and the superintendent's office. And on a regular day-to-day, Monday through Friday, that might be a challenge, right? I could be out at a school site. I could be out working with the state legislature on education policy. I could be doing a morning podcast, right, at the edge of our attendance boundary, right? So finding forums that I can present in front of a group of parents so that they do feel like they have that communication line is important.
Let's talk new schools now. Let's move into a new subject matter. The growth is immense.
Yeah.
And it's going. Pre-show we were talking about it, and there's a need for new schools, right?
Absolutely.
So where are these going? Give us the information here.
Yeah,
share with us.
We have two really exciting projects. You're right. A lot of growth in the community, both in the North Marana area. I think that's the most obvious place that people look, is because that's where you see the home building. But there's a lot of infill happening also on this side of the freeway, kind of in the heart of our district. So we're seeing some increased enrollment across really a large majority of our schools. But really looking at that North Marana area. So Prop 491 2 years ago, we passed a bond. The major project out of that was the new K-8 in Gladden Farms. If anybody's driven in North Marana, Tangerine Road, you're seeing the building going up. It's going vertical. Things are moving on budget, on time. This will open in the fall of 25, which used to sound like a long way out.
Wow,
but that's next fall.
Wow.
Right? Like we're I'm starting to lose sleep a little bit over this.
We just got to staff it and do all the other
that's right.
things,
We got
right?
staff, we need enrollment, we need all those things. But that project's moving along 2 weeks ago. So this is we're late October. I think today's the 23rd, if I'm correct that we're doing this show. But 2 weeks ago, our governing board approved the boundaries for the attendance area for that new K-8, and that impacts the existing Gladden Farms Elementary and Estes. Doesn't really impact Marana Middle School. Their boundaries won't change. But the board approved those new attendance boundaries. They're pretty intuitive. I don't think that anybody looked at the proposed boundaries and thought that there was really nothing too controversial about that. The other thing that's kind of nice in that area is we're not going to be asking families to make a school change if they don't want to. We're in a position where we're opening this new K-8. It's going to open with a few hundred students, but also it's opening with a little bit of room to grow, obviously with the building that's happening there, which is giving us a little bit of flexibility here in the first couple of years with our families where we're not uprooting people from a school that they're currently at. What's exciting now is that process, now that attendance boundaries are established, we have a committee that is going to be shifting to name, mascot, and colors.
Ooh.
Maybe the number one question I get with regards to the new K-8.
Name, mascot, and colors. Okay.
Keep an eye out for that. There will be a lot of information coming out with regards to that. But yeah, we'll be doing name, mascot, and colors. We're going to be starting our enrollment process. Really, we need to get an idea of where families are with regards to shifting over to the new K-8 so that then we can start our staffing process, right? And staffing's got to be based off of enrollment numbers. Sometimes that's a challenge because the school's being built, so you're making a commitment to attend something that's not entirely up yet.
Right.
That can be a little challenging for families, but but we're excited with that project.
That's good to hear. You just got a couple things to do over there, man. Not too much.
Yeah, it's fun times.
Hey, Raul, let's go to our sponsorship break, and then we will get back and talk about another project you got coming up, and then we'll just talk about education as well.
Awesome.
All right? Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash.
When you call in anonymously with the tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward.
Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
Calling all families. The Marana Pumpkin Patch is your ticket to fall fun for everyone. From toddlers to grandparents. We've got it all. Jumping pillows, a diesel train, a super slide, and more. Kids will love our farm animals, while adults will love our famous corn maze. And don't forget our 70-acre pumpkin patch from Post Farms. Marana Pumpkin Patch, where families make unforgettable fall memories. Tickets available now at maranapumpkinpatch.com.
And welcome back. I know y'all saw that last ad for the Marana Pumpkin Patch. The days that it's open, they're slowly disappearing, so make sure you get out there. I went out there last weekend with my family. It was an incredible time. There's new stuff out there. They're always adding things. They change things around. They had the pet farm, a lot more center. It was really, really fun. And then, of course, I couldn't get my daughter off of the jumping pillow things. You know, she was on there for about an hour. You know, I asked her afterwards, I'm like, hey, are you sore at all? You know, even the next day, because I pictured myself doing that for that long.
That's 2 weeks.
My Achilles are probably hurting pretty bad. The calf muscles are toasted. Yeah, quads are gone. Yeah, and she's nothing. You know, it's just amazing how their bodies, like being that young, how they can just go and go and go and go and go. But yeah, anyways, let's move on to something. You know, I was talking about the Silver Belt Project, but you know, during break we had a conversation, and we should be talking about achievements. Okay, because you got some cool news to share with us in regards to student achievement.
Yeah, we do. This is exciting. The timing of this is really interesting. Arizona operates on a letter grade system, so schools based on their student achievement, based on a couple different metrics, right? Student achievement on standardized testing. We look at acceleration. We look at readiness. We look at attendance rates, a couple of different aspects with regards to how our schools are doing, and then the state will assign a letter grade. So we're recording this on Wednesday. On Friday, the state will release letter grades. Okay. And what's significant about that is on Monday, the state approved the cut scores for letter grades. So we know what our student achievement numbers are. We know what the cut scores are, which means we actually know what our letter grades are. Okay. And I think I was in with Mayor Honey, gosh, maybe a year ago, doing one of these, and we had talked about student achievement a little bit. And at that time, I was able to talk about how we had doubled the number of A-rated schools in Marana. And I sit here this morning talking to you, saying that I can say that once again we have doubled the number of A-rated schools. Oh, amazing! In Marana.
Hit that applause. There we go. The air horn. Yes, yes.
So it's pretty cool, and it's really a testament to the hard work of our teachers and our leaders, and it's a testament to the hard work of our kids and our parents. You know, Marana has always been a school district that was on the cutting edge of innovation, really known throughout the area. Of being an innovative school district. You even look at some of the construction of our newer schools, Dove Mountain and Gladden Farms. We do a lot of tours for districts that are looking at new school builds and want to look at how the design of those schools and how those schools have been built to enhance some of the learning objectives. sometimes when you get so focused on innovation, you can fall into a trap of an either or mentality, right? Where we can have either innovation or student achievement. And you have to be careful in that. And so in the last 5 years, we've really talked about shifting from either or to both and, where we need to have both an innovative mindset and high student achievement. And this is really indicative of what's taking place in Marana, right? 10 A schools. You start looking around, and I'd go through the 10, but I'll miss one.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And it'll probably be the one I have to visit this afternoon, so I don't want to do that. But more A schools than we've ever had in the district's history. Since pre-pandemic 2019, 93% of our schools have higher student achievement scores than they did pre-pandemic. That just tells you the work that's happening. And again, this really goes back to our teachers and our leaders having this conversation of how do we shift from either or to both and their response being, yeah, of course we can do this. Let's work with our kids. So we have completely redefined what literacy instruction looks like. We've put in a new reading and writing program. We have changed how adults are working with kids in small groups on literacy instruction. We have rebuilt school schedules so that those literacy blocks are at the forefront of what's happening in our elementary schools, really with this idea that having kids learn to read is paramount for kids advancing through the system, where then they start reading to learn, right? But we got to get those foundational building blocks in place, and great things are happening there. So incredibly proud of the work that's taking place in our schools, and I'm glad I got to share that.
Yeah, thanks.
It's kind of hot off the press,
yes.
Right? So
Local Marana heard it first, okay? Okay, remember that, guys.
This is first, yeah. The mailer will come out Friday, but you got it here first this morning.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
It's exciting to hear. You know, you can't deny that there is a serious energy in this part of town. Compared to other places. And I'm not going to name drop other places, but there's a serious energy. And I talk with folks all the time, and they're like, why are you so invested in this area? I'm like, well, for one, I grew up out here, and I'm a Tiger, go Marana Tigers, okay? I'm an alumni.
Tigers, yeah.
I got there we go. Number one in football in the state right now. I'm just gonna throw that in. But anyways, aside from the pride and all that stuff about it, there's really a serious energy, and we want to be part of it. We want to be part of this growth. We want to be an advocate, like you said, for a lot of things, including education and positive culture and stuff like that we put out through this company. A lot of the stuff that we put out has to do with positivity and education, and just important conversations, right? We had, a congressman in here last week, which is a new thing for us, right? But there's just this energy here, and you don't want to miss it, and you don't want to fall behind. But what you guys are doing at the school district, I was in the Impact Marana program through the Marana Chamber, which if you haven't done it, I know it's only the second class. You were in it last year.
Class one.
Class one, right? Best class. That's what they always say. He was in class one, but I'm in class two, and already my mind is open. And it's cool to see all this stuff kind of taking place and everything. And talking about the schools, we visited a couple different campuses. And, I went to Marana High School, and I did a little bit of the auto shop and stuff like that. But I focused more on, just like math and sciences and stuff like that. I didn't really get into the, my extracurricular stuff was fitness and sports and all that. But I could not believe how well the students presented at the visit to the high school.
Right.
Like, I felt like I was in a room with presenting adults at a business presentation, a consulting, whatever it would be. I just was mind blown at it. Yeah. And not only that, when you talk about innovation, just all the stuff that was going on, especially in the welding program, like hearing that these kids and everything get certifications while they're at the school, where they're hitting the road after high school and they already got a job at $50K plus.
It's phenomenal, right? So we talk about letter grades.
Yeah.
We talk about $20 million in scholarship money last year's graduating class. We talk about AP classes. But to your point, we have to talk about 449 industry certifications that students earned last year through their career and technical education classes.
Wow.
And the students you heard from are CTE ambassadors. Those are the kids that we really rely on to go out into the community, promote their programs, and help us connect with businesses to create some of those partnerships. those are kids that walk around their campus and promote their programs and recruit more kids.
Yeah.
So that we can continue to get kids industry certifications when they walk across that stage on graduation night. So, yeah, we got great kids. I don't have to tell you. You got to see them in action.
Yeah, no, I was mind blown. And I see why they go around promoting and all that stuff, Like I was very surprised. And I'm not knocking, just because I just was, if you were to put them up against any kind of presentation I've seen out in the business world, they're right there.
And I think to that point, I think at coffee talks we talk about the sorry state of education and kids can't count change, and those are we're identifying extreme examples on one end. Very few people are getting to see the other examples that we have of our kids, those kids that are doing great things that we can't wait to get out into our community and starting to contribute to our community, right? Both economically, but more so just from a contribution standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with human behavior and focusing on the negatives more often, especially with, I won't knock in media companies in general or anything, but I think it's easy to focus on that stuff. And, that's why I want to bring it to light. Like, there's a lot of good things going on, regardless of the scores and stuff you're reading about in the media and what you're hearing. You're talking about new literacy programs being in place and stuff. We're not going to see the score results and all that stuff for a little while.
For years.
Yeah,
right?
for years. We're not going to see that. It's going to take time to work through, and talking about that, and we're talking about how the scores matter and how they're, how they're received, the scores is through testing, right? Getting folks ready through these tests. And I got to sit through a presentation of yours at Impact Marana. And I think I came up to you and was like, you have my attention, like big time. Because you used some words in there. I gave you a specific word, and it was agency. But there's a new academy coming. And unless there's more achievement you want to talk about.
No, I'm getting excited about this topic right now. This is my passion area.
Yeah, because we were talking about the scores and everything, and then, I wasn't expecting that presentation from you at all. I was like, oh, he's just going to give us some updates on the schools and everything, and then this really caught my attention was this academy. So let's talk about this academy project going in on Silver Bell.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Silver Bell project. Let me give you some history on this. So back in 2020, the school district purchased the old urgent care building in the Continental Ranch area off of Silver Bell Road. So it's a 35,000 square foot building. Also in 2020, we went into this worldwide pandemic mode. And so we were kind of, I don't want to say we were sitting on the building that was sitting empty, because it wasn't. It was housing custodial supplies. But we weren't moving forward with a big project on it. We were kind of managing what was going to happen. Couple years later, we started looking at when we started looking at Prop 491 and the need for a bond, we started looking at where we could procure some state funding for some educational space. Elementary space, we know that the state will never be approved for state funding for elementary schools. The way that the formula works, we know that we won't get state funding for that. But we did go back to the state and ask them about high school space, because overcrowding at our high schools is really a hot topic. And so we went to the state, asked them, and they said, yes, you are approved for, it was about $12 million to accommodate 400 students. And they approved about 27,000 square feet for a project. So we had to look at what we were going to do with that. So the first thing that we thought about was, well, we're not going to build a new school, right? $12 million is, it's going to get you like the front entryway and the flagpole, right? You're not going to get a comprehensive high school out of that. Could you add building space at Marana High School? We could. We have the land there. We don't have the infrastructure at Marana High School. When you start thinking about sewer and water and things like that campus is really in a difficult position with regards to what the infrastructure is. We actually need to find ways to get kids off the campus, not put more buildings there to accommodate more kids. So that adding that building space to Marana High wasn't one of the options. We talked about Mountain View. The problem with Mountain View is, again, a crowded campus. It's a pretty tight landlocked campus. So to add square footage, you really would have to go up. You'd have to build a second story on something, which gets pretty expensive pretty quick, and also doesn't accommodate the need of the Marana High School students, right? We would just be addressing one of our campuses. So we went back to the state and we said, hey, we have this piece of property in Continental Ranch. Could we use the funding for new high school programming on that building? And the state came back to us and said, well, we've never approved a project like that, right? Said, well, this is why we're asking you the question, right? We're aware. And we did some work behind the scenes and finally got approval from the state to use state dollars, $12 million of state grants to remodel that urgent care. They changed the square footage from 27,000 to 35,000 to match the square footage of that building so that we could use all of those state grant funds to remodel that building into high school programming. First of its kind in the state of Arizona. Being watched closely by the state of Arizona because they're looking around at some of the big box stores around the state as this could be a possible future funding mechanism for school construction. So we've gotten a lot of support from the state on this project because they really want to see how this goes and they'd like it to be successful. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? Right. So now we have the funding, we have this plan. What do we do? This is the conversation that you and I engaged in a little bit a couple weeks ago. We saw this was an opportunity to really accelerate our vision of education and give folks a glimpse into what the future of education could look like. This was an opportunity to completely redefine what teaching and learning looks like. And so this fall of 25, not only the new K-8 in Gladden Farms, but we'll be opening up a 100% personalized learning high school in Continental Ranch. Can accommodate about 400 students. Personalized learning, so completely different high school experience than you and I went through. This is not a bell schedule. This is not science for 55 minutes and then switch to English, right? This is about cross-curricular units. This is about problem-based learning. This is about students taking more agency in their learning, really talking about what content area they want to dive into. It's not, when I present this, a lot of people say this sounds like an online school, like go at your own pace. Not go at your own pace, but go at your own depth. Where are those areas that you want to spend some more time in and dive into? This is what that opportunity is. Now, we're also going to layer some career and technical education programs around that as well. So we'll have some of our higher level CTE programs at that site as well. But if you think about education, right, the system that we all currently work in right now, and we talked about standardized test scores, mm-hmm. right, it's a pretty compliance-based system, right? We kids have learned at an early age, the successful kids have learned, be compliant, get your A, and move through the system. This is an opportunity to maybe shift away from a focus on compliance and let kids really lean into their curiosity. I would argue that most of our kids start school in kindergarten very curious learners, very excited about the idea of learning. And how the system's currently built is we slowly take that curiosity out of them because we want them to be compliant. What if we could keep them in that curiosity zone where they really get to explore, they really get to take more ownership in their learning? And in turn, we talk about this term student agency, right? Students taking more ownership. What are the benefits of that? Students then walk out of the system more independent learners, mm-hmm. able to critically think, right? Really able to work through problems. Now we start to develop those skills that we all want our kids to walk out of high school with so that they can contribute to this community. And I'll say the 21st century. If we're not careful, we're going to miss the 21st century, right? We're a quarter of the way through it. But this is about changing what skills we're prioritizing.
Yeah, you bring up that fact of agency. So I had discussed with you, for the listeners and viewers, to get some insight about it. With all the development of technology and how fast it's happening, the old way, the standardized testing way, which Clint and I have called it the conveyor belt, right? You jump on and kind of just go. It is, yeah, right? Just go get through, and then you get out there and you just go do the job that you got to do. And we have utilized AI in a lot of things here, and we've had some people counter like, "Oh, why are you guys doing that?" You know what I mean? But it has taken over some jobs already, right? But that doesn't mean that there isn't more opportunity. Right. There's more opportunity in the problem-solving area and the critical thinking that you're talking about. Right. There is elusive problems that occur every day here in any other organization that takes people that have the ability to think outside of the box, that can work through the processes to to take it upon themselves, right? Instead of being told, hey, you need to go do this. Right. You could approach it in a way like, hey, here's the issue we have. What are your thoughts and how do you think you can get through this?
Yeah, right. And we need to think about, I mean, you just said something really important. Things are shifting
quickly.
Right?
Yeah.
So before this show, we talked about my children. Both of them are in college now, but we'll use my son who's a senior in college. He's a senior in college. He doesn't have a car with him. He's able to Uber where he needs to go. He did a semester in Spain a couple years ago where he Airbnb'd himself around Europe. When he started his school experience, those weren't things. Uber was called hitchhiking, and we told our kids not to do it, right?
Right, yeah.
Knocking on a stranger's door to sleep on their couch was not something that we encouraged our kids to do, right? But this is all of us are now. I would argue if we pulled out our phones, we have the Uber app, we have the Airbnb app, we probably have the Netflix app, right? Netflix, I mean, it used to be a DVD rental.
We have our own app too, guys. So
right?
we have an app.
You have this app, right? So, but when he started school, these things didn't exist.
Right.
So what was that programming looking like, right? That we have to shift our mindset. We have to prepare kids to solve problems that don't exist yet.
Yeah, and we're going to finish that. I wanted you to go more in depth about the story. I think it was the golf course and then a constitutional paper.
Goodness, yes.
Let's get into that, but let's do that after this sponsorship break. Thank you so much for our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash.
When you call in anonymously with a tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward.
Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
Calling all families. The Marana Pumpkin Patch is your ticket to fall fun for everyone. From toddlers to grandparents. We've got it all. Jumping pillows, a diesel train, a super slide, and more. Kids will love our farm animals, while adults will love our famous corn maze. And don't forget our 70-acre pumpkin patch from Post Farms. Marana Pumpkin Patch, where families make unforgettable fall memories. Tickets available now at maranapumpkinpatch.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hey, before we jump more into your kid's story here, your kids' stories, we had a question come in through the chat. Hey, Raul, can you relay that to Dr. Streeter?
I got you right here. What do you say to the people who feel like you only care about the schools on Marana High School side of I-10? Some feel like it's all the money and hype is only for them.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something that comes up quite frequently. When you're in a school district with 18 schools and growing, the conversation around equity and equality comes up quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And when you think about, we're kind of unique in Marana in that I-10 comes right down the middle of our district. And so for better or worse, we have an east side feeder pattern and a west side feeder pattern, right? And it's great for professional development. It's a challenge for these types of questions, right? Where are we addressing both sides of the freeway at the same level, right? Same thing when Dove Mountain was built. Why the brand new K-8? What about the aging schools? Things like that. So it's a really good question. And especially, I think it makes sense. Where's the new K-8 going? It's going on the west side of I-10. That's where the growth pattern is. The IChoose Academy or the Silver Bell Project, I'll say, it's on the west side of I-10 also. One, that's just where the existing piece of property was. What's beneficial about the program that we're talking about right now is we feel like that's in a pretty centrally located spot where we can work with our students from both Mountain View and Marana High School at the same time.
Right.
I don't know that there's a divide on where the resources are going. I'll tell you, as a parent, my son graduated from Mountain View High School. So we certainly have a lot of black and silver in our closet. Maybe we have a house divided here on the podcast.
We do.
Here
Well, we're here together, right?
Battle the boot for a couple of years there. I had to explain to my son why I was on the other sideline for half the time and on his sideline for half the time. I think maybe the bigger divide that I worry about is that we have new school construction happening and we have aging schools that we need to address. And I think that's going to be something in the next 5 years as a community we're going to talk about. Great for the new K-8. I think we understand that's where the growth is. Great that Dove Mountain was built where it was and is a full campus. But what about the Quail Runs, the Butterfields, right? Some of those older schools, and how do we address that? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a great question. It's certainly, I think there's some things just geographically like lend itself to that split.
Right.
But it's certainly when we make decisions about programming, it's how do we positively impact all of our students on both sides of the freeway.
Yeah.
And so I think that aging facility is going to be the big question that we're going to have to address as a community here pretty quick.
Right. And I want to echo that is a great question. And I want to thank that person for jumping in the chat and asking. We always love participation and having you guys involved, and that's why we're doing this whole new platform for everybody is to be able to engage. Look at that. You had a question coming right there.
Yes.
It's awesome. So, hey, let's get back to your kids and their story in regards to the agency and the excitement and the curiosity and some stuff that you observed with your kids going through the education system.
Right. So let's talk about what personalized learning is.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll share two stories. One with each of my children. I mentioned my older son is a senior in college, and I'll reflect on his K-12 experience. Right. This was a kid who really took advantage of opportunities, and where there weren't opportunities, he would create opportunities for himself. He was definitely a kid that went into school very curious and stayed curious. For a long time. I think in high school he realized that curiosity wasn't going to get him into his choice college. He better focus on being more compliant so he could get that high class rank, right? That high GPA, all of those pieces. And I share this story when he was a freshman. He was taking biology, and it was one of those days where I was able to pick him up from school. And so I pick him up from school. He gets in the car, and I say, "How was your day?" And those of you that have a 14-year-old know that if you ask a 14-year-old how their day was, they're going to answer fine, right? There's not a lot. That was my fault. I should have known. It was a bad question. But I said, all right, well, what was the best part of your day? And he got a little bit, he kind of sat up and he said, it was probably biology. And I thought that was weird because I don't know how anybody would say that biology was the best part of their day. My apologies to our biology teachers, my assistant superintendent, Kristen Reedy, who was a science teacher. I'm going to tell you biology was never the best part of my day, right? So I said, well, tell me about that. And then he really lit up and he said, Dad, this is so cool. Today we learned about epigenetics. We learned about how you can take DNA strands and you can manipulate them, and you can do this to cure diseases, and you can change them. He said, I think this is what I want to do. And I thought, wow, like that's incredible. Like, go Mr. Dowpias. Great job as a biology teacher. You got this kid's fire lit. You know, I didn't have the heart to tell my son that between his mother and I, there was not a scientific bone in his body, but right. But he was on fire with biology. I mean, it was incredible. Fast forward 2 days later, again, my schedule, just the way that it worked. I pick him up from school again. He gets in the car. I say, how was your day? Again, stupid question. I don't know why I asked it, but he told me it was fine. But I got smart. I said, well, tell me about biology. I mean, tell me about that epi thingy you were talking about, right? And he goes, oh, we're done learning about that. And I thought, man, we had this kid. Mm-hmm. Like, this kid was on fire. You could have addressed 15 different biology standards off of epigenetics with this. You had him ready to go wherever you wanted to take him, right? You could have had him doing research. You could have had him connecting with somebody in the field, right? Back then it would have been Skype, not Zoom, right? But you could have had him connecting with people in the field. You could have had him in lab work. You had this kid. You had him ready to go. And we let him off the hook because our curriculum map says that we do epigenetics for one day. This Silver Bell project is a chance to flip that system on its head. This is a chance for a kid who's on fire with epigenetics. You stay there. You and I, the one day may be good for us on epigenetics, right? Yeah. But the Collins, stay, do something, extend your learning. That's what personalized learning is. That's what this opportunity is. I'll give you another example. I'll use my other son, Cade. He's a sophomore in college now, Mountain View graduate, played golf at Mountain View, is currently playing college golf. He had a English 101 teacher at Mountain View, and I'll give you two aside. Cade's a good student, good kid, right? He's in college, but he's not one of those kids that particularly loves school. Mm-hmm. And he sends me an email and says, "Hey, can you help me with my writing assignment?" And I say, "Sure. What is it?" And he said, "Well, it's a psychology paper, and I have to look at a secondary source, identify the primary sources that are referenced in that, and then go to the primary source and identify the primary sources being represented in the secondary source." And I'm thinking, God, I don't ask my master's level students to do work like this. This is. And I said, "Well, send me what you have." And he shares a Google Doc with me, and it's blank. Right? All right, we got to do some work on this. Yeah. Right. Fast forward, another assignment, English assignment. English teacher at Mountain View High School. Detson has him do a research paper on golf courses and the sustainability of golf courses, and are they good for the environment or bad for the environment? Pretty interesting topic, especially for someone who's a golfer, who's now a college golfer. I get the similar email. "Can you help me with my paper?" Sure. What's the problem? The problem is it's a 5-page paper, and right now I have 9 pages. We have a kid engaged in something that he's excited about. Yeah. Change the assignment. We go from a blank page to 9 pages, right? What if the education system was built based off of what kids were excited about, not just what the curriculum map said kids have to do? Yeah. Right? This is the opportunity for personalized learning. Now tell me, what did Cade get more out of? I mean, there's things in school that you just have to know, right? Like we all acknowledge that there's stuff that we had to learn that we weren't excited about. We get that. Right. But in that research paper, this kid had to demonstrate the ability to do research, the ability to discern between fact and opinion, what was credible research, right? And then be able to draw quality conclusions from that research to make a research-backed recommendation. Right. Does it really matter if it was about the sustainability of golf courses or the hottest social justice topic? I mean, we got what we wanted out of that. Yeah. This project at Silver Bell is really a platform for kids to engage in work like that. That's what's exciting about this. And that's what student agency is. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. You see, so I love that story because you think about, he plays golf, right? And the amount of information he learned within that research paper beyond what was needed to get the grade, he might have learned of different turf types, what the bounce rate is, how does the ball roll on it, how does it affect, if you get this type, it uses less water, but it increases the ball speed, like all these different dynamics.
Never mind how to correctly cite something in APA format, 4th edition, right?
Right. And that's I feel like that's what the world needs. And you talk about the private sector in general, right? Like you have guys like Elon Musk. I'm going to bring him up. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people do, but he openly goes about talking how he's brought in people in his recruitment that don't have degrees. Right. But they have that agency. Mm-hmm. They have that want. They're hungry to change the world. Right. And I think all of us have that. When you were giving the presentation, I thought about myself. And I was a perfect example of this, right? Because I didn't like school. I just did what I needed to do to be able to play sports and to just go on with my life. But, I do remember a couple things where I got really, really excited, but then you just move on down on the conveyor belt and you go, and I recognize that this program isn't for everyone, right? We people are going to need to know that, right? But there's going to be these folks that this is for them. This is the way they increase their literacy and they increase their knowledge, because you can get so much more out of a subject matter when someone's on fire as opposed to just getting through it, right?
100%. And It's not going to be for everyone because I think that there are people who are very comfortable
Right.
in the existing system.
And that's okay.
But let's also think about what type of learners we have out there in our schools today. And for the people listening, think about your own children, right? I'm going to overgeneralize, but there's really 4 types of learners that I see in our schools. The first type is those high achievers, right? My older son was a high achiever, second in his class, salutatorian, student body president, right? High achiever, very compliant. He knows how to do school. He plays the game of school well, better than everybody except one person, right, in his graduating class, right? High achiever. This is an opportunity. This is a program that pushes him out of compliance. Doesn't limit him to just what the honors or AP curriculum says he can do, but allows him to extend beyond that. Then you have those students in school. These are your subject savant kids, right? We have an elementary student right now who starts his day at Mountain View High School in an advanced math class because he is subject savant math. This is an opportunity for this child to start to see connections in other content areas with math. So we don't just keep him on this math acceleration, but we can also develop some of those other skills along the way. Then you have those reluctant learners. I'd argue my younger son was a reluctant learner. Not a bad student, right? He was a good student. He didn't like school. He just wasn't excited about it. What if we allowed those students to dive into things that they were excited about? And then we can start to develop some of these other skills, right? This is the golf course assignment, right? We got a lot of skills out of that one assignment, right? Then you're struggling learners. And I don't want to say students on an IEP or special education students, but we can use special education as a term I think people are familiar with that. The way the system, and I was a special education teacher before I went into administration, the way that we work in our special education system is we identify what students are bad at, and then we beat them over the head with it repeatedly, right? As part of a kind of remediation. What if we took that same group of students and instead of asking them and starting with what are you bad at, we started with what are you good at? And let's build off of your strengths. Let's do a strength-based approach to learning rather than a deficit-based. So I would argue that it is for everyone. It won't be. I think there's some people that are comfortable in the existing system, but this is really an opportunity for all learners to thrive.
Yeah. So like when we say all learners, will people be able to just go do some stuff at the academy and then go back to a regular campus, like jump in and out?
That's a really great question. So this is a program. It's not a school.
Okay.
I think there will definitely be some students who spend their whole day at the Silver Bell property doing personalized learning. I think we'll have a lot of students that spend part of their day. So I'll use my younger son, Kate, as an example. When he was at Mountain View, he would have loved this program. He did a similar program in middle school. I think realistically, he would have started his day at Mountain View in his AP stats class. Then he would have taken a bus straight to the property to engage in science, social studies, ELA, probably a couple of electives, and then would have come back to Mountain View because he would have had golf practice in the afternoon. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for kids to engage in their learning in a different way, but not necessarily have to leave extracurricular or co-curricular activities at the door. We obviously can't put band and drama at this site, but we don't have to also take it away from kids that want to access the other parts of their education there. We can still give that opportunity at Marana High School and Mountain View High School.
Right. So we got a couple minutes left, and I want to ask you a question. It's kind of we didn't discuss this question at all.
This is trouble. Here we go.
Here we go.
I thought you were struggling to talk. Oh, what happened?
No. When you guys purchased that building back in 2020, was it? Did you think that this was what was going to happen with the funding and the direction it would go at that time?
Yeah, that's a good question. The building was purchased right before I got here as superintendent. Former board member Dan Post, in one of our first conversations, he said, "We just purchased this building in Continental Ranch. What do you want to do with it?" I said, "Well, I'd like to see it."
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I thought, I do have an idea. I think that there's something that we could do pretty profound with this.
Right.
I will tell you, originally, we thought that this would be a good opportunity for it to be one of the bond projects from Prop 491.
Okay.
But we were able to pull that out of the bond project when we were able to get the state funding for it. So we did some work so that it wasn't a bond project. In the back of my mind, I thought there was an opportunity here to do something really innovative in a way to really reach a broad range of kids in a really different way. And I think that things have now aligned to allow us to do that and do it with state funds.
Yeah, timing's interesting.
It worked well.
Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure having you here today. I look forward to many more conversations and working out in the community together. Listeners, viewers, if you haven't yet, follow Marana Unified School District on all your social media platforms. You can look out for Dr. Dan Streeter on social media as well. I know he has a LinkedIn. And again, subscribe to his Substack if you're looking for some good leadership stuff. As always, we want to remind you that we have an app that is available. Jump on there. And if you're interested in advertising or sponsoring our program, just hit us up and we'll make it happen. Businesses, people in the community, get more involved. Support the school. Okay, you see this here? I voted. Make sure you take care of your ballots. Get it done. Make it happen. Much love. Thank you so much for joining us today.